Welcome to our class today. You'll see that our lesson for Unit 2, Day 2, deals with summary or moving from summary to synthesis writing. And we're going to be using the topic media bias in order to do that. And then finally, we'll be talking about another section of your ePortfolio. So if you look at our agenda, you'll notice if you are not with us, please pay attention to all three parts of the academic notes agenda. In class, students are printing rhetorical analysis essay and giving them to me so that I can give you feedback on those essays. You're also uploading your essay into Canvas to go through the UniChecker, make sure there's no plagiarism issues going on. And then finally, during academic notes, you're actually going to be taking notes on ePortfolios, the second section of it, the goals and outcomes section. Then after that, notice that we will move into our second topic that you get to choose from for your research paper, and that topic is media bias. So if you are not with us, I assume that if you're on this slide now, you have already uploaded your rhetorical analysis essay into the Canvas assignment so that you meet the mandatory deadline of Wednesday, October 27th. And then if you're not with us, you can just go ahead, print your essay, and then give me that copy on Friday. Just make sure that it's the same one that appears in Canvas. Now, in your academic notes, there is a video here on this slide, and it takes you to a section dealing with ePortfolio again. Start at the 140 point because it's going to talk about one of the pages in your ePortfolios, which is goals and outcomes. So on this page, I have given you what I expect your goals and outcomes page to contain. So I want you to think of long and short-term goals. So short-term goals would be anything in the next 1 to 2 years, and then long-term, any 5 to 10-year goals. And you're going to divide this page in your ePortfolio into 4 parts. The first one will be your actual goals, and those will be subdivided into 3 parts: educational goals, personal goals, and professional. And notice on the slide that I put that you need to think of 5 goals that fit each of those 3 subtopics. When you type them, make sure that you type them in a parallel format. In other words, if you use bullets, either start with a verb every time and then finish the statement, or write them in complete sentences. Just be consistent throughout all of the goals that you put on this page. The other thing is a requirement for this page from Salt Lake Community College, and you are to copy their learning and outcomes statement and put it on this page. So I'm just following their orders. So on this slide, I put a link to that document. It's about a paragraph long. So once you set up that goals and outcome page, just click on this link, go to that slide, and then finally just copy it on that golden outcome page. So this is not a very long page, but eventually in January, before you present your ePortfolio, I'll give you a couple of days and you can add a quote or maybe a picture of the logo of the college you're attending, something like that to spice it up. All right, yesterday or in class on Monday, remember that we talked about poverty. And today, our second topic we are going to talk about is media bias. And with this topic, I'm not only introducing a topic to you, but also giving you a skill that will help you eventually with your research paper. So the skill is learning how to synthesize. If you look at these 2 graphics that I've included on this page, they give us a good idea of what it means to synthesize. Like if you look at the one on the left, you'll notice that each of those sources, energy sources, one combined together create a new form of source. So if you think this metaphorically with what you're doing when you write research papers, you have each of these sources, and rather than energy, you have information that comes from the sources. But when you create your own research paper, you should be creating a new form of information, just like a new source of energy on this illustration. You're not just recycling or summarizing 2 sources, 5 sources, 10 sources, 20 sources. You are creating another source, which is your source, using the data from all of the different sources. That's what it means to synthesize. On the right side of this slide, you'll notice that I've included a famous graphic. It's the Bloom's Taxonomy graphic. Benjamin Bloom created this educational model decades ago. But what he's done is he talks about different learning or thinking skills that we use, and it fits so well to school. Notice that, and sadly, too much of our school time is devoted to just rote knowledge, like memorize facts, know the dates to something, identify capitals. So it's recall information. Recall or knowledge information helps us out a lot if we're on Jeopardy, but there's little thinking that goes on. So for example, if I said, name the capital of California, and instantly the word Sacramento or the city Sacramento should come to your mind. When that happens, there's not a lot of thinking going on. But as you move up this ladder with the Bloom's taxonomy model, you can see that each of them is a higher level thinking skills. Mr. Bloom actually divided the thinking skills into a top tier model and a bottom tier model. And it isn't illustrated so much on this graphic, but it goes between analysis and application. So I think it's kind of interesting in this class, the types of papers that you're writing. You can see that why this is a critical thinking class as well as just a writing class, because you just finished up an analytical paper, which is analyzing, breaking apart something. That's a higher level of thinking. And then a research paper, again, creating something new from a bunch of different sources is what we call synthesizing, this new form of energy. And so that's even a higher level of thinking. The top level of thinking, evaluation. If we were doing this in schools all the time, it would be amazing to see what actually would take place with students' minds and their abilities. This is where we have the ability to assess value of whether or not something is working, because we have to learn all of these skills below it in order to be successful evaluators. One of the sad realities of the fact that I grade your paper is I am performing all the higher level thinking, the evaluation of this, when in all reality, you guys should be doing that one. So with that in mind, we're going to put this idea of synthesizing information from different sources into a new form of information, or synthesizing that information. So to do that, I'm going to show you a bunch of different sites and information dealing with news bias. So the first one is in your resource booklet. Bari Weiss has become one of my favorite writers. She actually was one of the lead editors for the New York Times until a couple of years ago, when she abruptly, in 2020, she abruptly resigned. The reason why, she is a Jew, and she came under a lot of fire from her colleagues at the New York Times and the publishers for providing or writing a lot of articles about the Jewish people and discrimination that comes to them. So I put in here on the slide 4 of them that she wrote about. Anyway, she finally got tired of it and resigned from a high profitable job. And, that takes a lot of moral courage on her part to do that. Since that time, and I loved the beauty of her resignation letter. I want you to read it as a person learning how to write well. She does just a good job on that. Anyway, I'm not saying whether to support the New York Times or not, but just she exemplifies a lot of times what's happened to our news agencies, that no longer are they objective. In this one of the things she says in her letter is Twitter is not on the masthead of the New York Times, but Twitter has become its ultimate editor. And so she bashes out at the New York Times, saying you've let Twitter take over the objectivity of whether or not something should be published or not. Which then goes back to 40 years ago when a major news anchor, Walter Cronkite, identified the first time when he thought that people started distrusting news agencies. And he said it happened, in his opinion, when the Vietnam War was going on. And so there's a video here that he talks about that. But if you're not with us, just know that he said for the first time ever, people back here in the United States started seeing the realities of war. And they didn't like what they were seeing from war. And then as a direct result of it, they started distrusting or questioning where their news was coming from. So to illustrate that, in class, there is a handout with your packet that looks like this. And what I am doing is naming out 20 or 30 different news agencies, and I'm having the students in class write that agency on where they think that agency lies in objectivity, whether they are a left agency, leans left, a center, or an objectable source, whether it leans right or right. Remember, and you should know this, but remember, left is more progressive or liberal viewpoint, and right is more of a conservative viewpoint. So anyway, in class, that's what I'm doing. So once I've done that, it's hard for you to see this at home, then I'm having them look at this slide, because a lot of them that I showed them, I will pull from this list to see whether or not we recognize the intent of the news agency, rather than just treating them all objective, where they fit. And this isn't my information. I put some information down below. This is a study they did with all of these agencies. They went into like 600 different articles from each of them that they published, and then put it into some kind of computer that tells them what their news site is, left-leaning, right-leaning, or somewhere in the middle. So then with that idea in mind, we move in class of this concept of distrust with the media. So there is an article that I would like you to watch and think of some of these discussion questions. These are great discussion questions that might help give you an idea for your research paper if you choose to select media bias as the big umbrella term for your research paper. And then what I'm doing in class is so if you're at home, you're going to have to, what I'm having the people do at home is pick 8, 9, or 11, or 8, 9, and 10 on this chart in just a minute. So you'll follow the instructions on the next slide. But this kind of gives us a big picture, a whole bunch of news articles that are written and helping us to learn whether or not we are tech savvy and reading them. So in class, again, I'm breaking everyone into groups, and there is on the next slide, a link, I think. Yeah. Anyway, so if you are at home, you're going to pick an article, group 8, 9, and 10, and read the article, because they will be using the ones 1 through 7. Then once you have read the article, it says as a group, so you would do this at home. You're going to open, and you will get points for this. So you're going to open up this document that's on this slide, and it takes you to a Google Doc. Find your class period and complete it on the article you read. And then what we're actually doing in class is discussing how much of big picture we see this bias in our news, which then leads us into our assignment, Pew Research. And I'm running out of time. I have like 4 or 5 seconds. Just follow this. you have any questions, send me a message. So do this assignment.